Software is revolutionizing the world around us, from how we work to how we play to how we live each day. Code is reshaping our reality. But who creates the code, and how can we put the phenomenal power of SaaS, software as a service, into everyone's hands? This is Democratizing SaaS. Conversations with the brilliant minds disrupting business, technology, and society itself through the unstoppable force of democratized software. Here's Faizi Fatehi.
My guest is Claire Gribbin, the head of worldwide SMB customer segment at Amazon Web Services, AWS, the #1 cloud service provider in the world. As a senior executive, Claire brings an impressive track record of delivering results and building high-performing teams within multiple global tech giants, including Oracle and Microsoft, where she led Microsoft Azure SMB strategy. With this impressive background, Claire is perfectly positioned to share her insights on this very first edition of Democratizing SaaS podcast. Claire, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much, Faizi. It's really great to be your first guest on this podcast with Forbes.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. As I was doing my preparations for this podcast, I discovered something unique, that we both started college as an anthropology major, which never happened with anybody else. You moved to physics, I moved to engineering, and then we both ended up in business school. Can you share a little bit about the thinking behind anthropology, and also a little bit about your career journey in this global tech giants?
Yes, and that's always a fun thing to do. I get a lot of this question when I do mentoring, that kind of thing. Actually, it was a little bit the opposite. So I started as a physics and math double major, and both of which I loved and finished. But I finished math as a minor. But I started taking an anthropology class in my first year of university, and I found it so fascinating that I decided to pursue that as well. And at the same time, by my junior year or so, when I was still planning to be a physicist, what I realized in doing some research in low temperature physics in the windowless basement of the physics building, that it wasn't really for me, that I like people too much. I like more dynamic problem solving. So I basically just kind of followed my curiosity, and I wound up in graduate school studying anthropology more on that side, and then into business school, and then into a role where it was basically like a leadership development role at AT&T, Ameritech at the time. And that really gave me like so many incredible opportunities to learn. So believe it or not, I was actually managing a crew of linemen responsible for placing all of the fiber optic cable around the state of Ohio. This was in 1991. I also at one point was an instructor, university level instructor in American Studies and Anthropology. And that's where I discovered my love of tech as well. So I was the first one. This was in 1990, so the year before. That ages me. But in 1990, I developed an online forum for my students, and have always loved that kind of ability to use technology to engage people. So I think that just kind of naturally led me into this career. After Ameritech, Amazon, I got into doing kind of knowledge management and leading a training organization and building processes, and then into service management, leading global technical support organization, even QA during the internet downturn, in startups, an ISV startup, which eventually got bought by Oracle. So it just kind of progressed. And, in retrospect, when I look at my career, the one thing that I realized is that I was really just following my core values. I didn't necessarily know what they were at the time. I wasn't conscious of it, but I did some work later and realized that it's curiosity, courage, and community. And those three things have led me to every step in my career.
Incredible. When we hear about the background of how leaders are created, and we hear about all these diverse experiences, both technical, intellectual, and team building, human interaction. It's just amazing. Thank you for sharing that, Claire. Very inspiring background. And value-wise, we are very aligned. So delighted to hear that. I know
I
we're going to
like Daisy in all our conversations, so it doesn't surprise me.
get... Yeah, when you hear about the background now, that explains a lot of alignments. We're going to get to some deep SaaS conversations. Why don't we start on a lighter side, Claire? How do you define SaaS, if you don't mind sharing?
Well, just at its basic level, SaaS is just on-demand subscription software. People tend to equate it with the cloud, and I like to think of it as being, enabled by the cloud, of course, since I've been working with the cloud for some time now. But it's really about automating tasks and increasingly even beyond just tasks, like full workflows for businesses to deliver value so that they don't have to worry about all the stuff behind the scenes, but they can just focus on the value that they want to deliver. That's kind of how I look at it.
Perfect. That's a very simple, practical, and meaningful definition. Sometimes I talk to people, they overcomplicate matters. We want to deliver value to customers in a cost-effective way, in a reliable way, and make it easy to deliver that value. Amazing. To continue this evolution of our conversation, Claire, have you heard any misconceptions about SaaS?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first one is that people don't always understand the difference between on-premise software and SaaS and what that is. And so they tend to equate SaaS with cloud, as I mentioned before. And cloud is a necessary but not sufficient requirement for SaaS. There's a lot of other aspects. And the one thing that I think about SaaS as well is that it's a much more scalable way to deploy software. So it enables a different kind of profit model for a business who offers it than an on-premise software could be if you happen to be the developer of it. And then from a user's perspective, it enables a lot more of an OpEx model so that you can consume it not as out of your CapEx budget, but looking at it as just a utility function. And so I think that difference can be a misconception that you require that it's only cloud and it's not just cloud, especially when you're thinking about it from a developer's point of view. There's a lot of other things to think about it. The other thing, and this is a misconception that I think extends to it being something that is hosted in the cloud. So it's no longer software that you're running on your servers. If you're a really small business, maybe in your closet somewhere that you buy one license and you forget about it. And then, but by the way, it gets out of date and then it gets all kinds of security issues. So, people tend to think that software you buy is more secure, but in fact, SaaS software is much more secure and has been for some time. The other misconception is around data. You tend to think about, well, I want that data stored locally, so I don't need to. It relates to the security question, but it also relates to how I could use that data to get insights into my business. And once you free up your data, in a sense, to be in the cloud, then you can take advantages of so many other ways to ultimately monetize that data for your business. So I think those are two misconceptions that, the data is not interoperable with other applications within your business and other processes, and it is actually more secure as well.
Amazing. I believe I heard you saying a future famous quotable quote. As it relates to SaaS, cloud is necessary but not sufficient. I believe that's what I heard you saying. I think that's brilliant. A lot of people, you cannot believe this, Claire. Like in receptions, in networking sessions, I run into other people. What do you do? I'm a CEO of software company. I said, yeah, I'm a CEO of software company. Do you offer SaaS? And the answer is yes, we run on the cloud. And I pause and I say, okay, cloud is a good place to run your software, but are you SaaS? And then there's a pause. I said, what do you mean? We run on the cloud. We gotta be SaaS. And then the conversation either goes really well or not that well. So a lot of people find being on the cloud equivalent to be SaaS, and I believe that's one of the biggest misconceptions, as you highlighted. And then uh, about the data, uh, I had the privilege of having a meeting with John Lawrence that runs, as you know, the AWS SaaS factory, arguably one of the, if not the most capable group of software cloud architects building SaaS solutions. And he mentioned that it takes about 18 months to 36 months, year and a half to 3 years to transform an enterprise software into an efficient, scalable, featureful SaaS, which is very consistent with what we hear in the market. Uh, I believe one additional misconception, if I may add, is turning a software into SaaS is easy. And probably comes from the perspective that somebody has a very simplistic view of SaaS as opposed to a SaaS that you can mine data. It's highly efficient to delivering that service. Therefore, you can pass on the lower cost to translate it into lower price for your customers, etc. But I hear a lot of misperception, misconception about the fact that, hey, what is a big deal about SaaS? And when I heard it from John Lawrence that, yeah, it's year and a half to 3 years to transform, that was a validating point in my life. I said, okay, we're working so hard to automate the process of SaaS enablement, make it a no-brainer. And someone at his caliber validated that. So just wanted to highlight that as well. So there are a lot of misconceptions around SaaS. And I'm grateful to Forbes Books, that is the sponsor of this podcast, that they encouraged me to write a book like for the last 5 years. And eventually they caught me at the middle of pandemic. Said, Faizi, now what is your excuse? You're just, isolated. You're not traveling. Why don't you write this book and clarify some of these misconceptions? And of course, the book is Democratizing SaaS, the name of this podcast. And you've been kind to sharing it with some of your colleagues, Claire, at AWS.
Yeah, it's really a fun book. I enjoyed it. I like the historical perspective it gave. It always I love history, and so it's great, like kind of putting it in the context of the whole history of the software industry, and then also where it's going. And I think that the book is something I enjoy sharing with my colleagues. Absolutely.
Thank you very much. In the book, I use this analogy to help it for non-techies, that what we have built, SaaS ops, that automates the whole process of enabling a software to become SaaS and also operating it in an automated fashion, compared it to Netflix. What Netflix is to the film industry, current SaaS ops is to the software industry. In your opinion, how does it resonate especially to non-techies? Is that a good, bad, average analogy? I'm big on analogies. People who get to know me use analogies, but sometimes I miss the mark.
No, well, when we first met, that was, I think, one of the very first things you said to me was using that analogy. And it did resonate right away for me. And the reason why it resonates is that people can relate to Netflix being a distribution platform for content. And it takes care of the back end of the things that a studio might not be expert in. So some of the techie back end things that enable a studio to deliver like this fabulous show, and then they can focus on content. And the other thing that I can really relate to is that Netflix has a long tail of content now, right? So it's not just like a few networks delivering particular shows. It's everybody has this opportunity to distribute their content through something like a Netflix, which is something that I believe SaaS ops can enable too. Because when we talked about like why it's not easy, why it does take longer, it isn't just the technical side. There's a business model aspect of it that has to be considered. And so the commercials are really important. Like I've seen many of our partners thinking about how they move to a SaaS model, but they don't understand how to transform, like a cost plus model into a recurring revenue model, for example. So I think all of those things are sort of wrapped up in that Netflix analogy as well.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I played with the analogies for years, tried to get the point because it's a disruptive technology. It's something that nobody's thinking about. And sometimes I compare it to the invention of databases. A lot of younger people don't remember there was a time there was no operating system. I remember in college people coming and sitting down on the floor and uh, for overnight writing operating system so they can build an application on top of old PCs. And then, of course, DOS came and later Linux. And then the databases, people, even when I was in graduate school, computer science, we were building data structures because we didn't have access to a database. And then the Oracle came and other Microsoft SQL Server, and now we have all these DBAS, database as a service. But we had to write data using a compiler, simple compiler to write programs to create data structures so we can store data and then retrieve data, create indexing, and then voila, came databases. We didn't have to do any of that work. We put 100% of our effort in building the application. The operating system is there, the database there is like heaven. Here in the Candy Store, build your applications without worrying about it. And today the analogy is people using DevOps to create SaaS ops. And then with the invention of SaaS ops by Corin, we say use DevOps to build your applications and don't worry about SaaS ops and SaaS operations and spending 1.5 to 3 years of your work building SaaS ops. It's like building data structures. Just plug into the database, in this case, plug into SaaS ops, and voila. After 1 or 2 days of configuration, no programming, you have your SaaS in a very advanced way. So we are excited about it. You and I, Claire, wrote a joint blog. It feels like years ago, but it was just this past January, highlighting the value of a plug and play SaaS. In terms of AWS customers, why do you think it's important for us to highlight this new possibility to the prospects, especially the ISVs, SMB startups who are considering coming to AWS, to know about this option in close collaboration with AWS?
Well, for me, I really think we share a mission in democratizing access to advanced technology. That's the title of your book. And that's really since I've been at AWS, it's been my mission for our small and medium business organization is how do we put this advanced technology that we have at AWS in their hands so that they can compete. And they're smaller businesses, and especially smaller businesses that can offer SaaS to small businesses that might not have that capability are really the lifeblood of our economy. And there's so much proliferation and so much new capabilities that we're opening up to them, and then through you opening up to them to compound that and to scale that across tens of thousands of these small ISVs, even small MSPs and VARs. By the way, that's a trend I see that there's these hyper local VARs that have been serving small businesses like your dentist office or something for years, and they know their customers so well, and they might be outsourcing IT to them, but they are starting to see that they could automate processes and that they can offer their own kind of SaaS. So by making it easy for them, and also by making it easy to access capabilities that we have in AWS, like through Bedrock, access to all of these LLMs, they can offer generational AI capabilities into their apps to small businesses.
Yes.
So I think it's our shared value in that democratization and helping ramp this up to these tens of thousands, not only in America, but across the world, which is what I'm accountable for. In countries like Africa, I worked in Africa, in continents like Africa, where there's so many countries where there's lots of entrepreneurs who have a mission to help their local communities. It's important there as well, and I see it happening there.
Yeah, amazing. You're making great points in terms of small SMB ISVs helping others by turning their software into cost-effective and complete and sophisticated SaaS. Uh, that's a step in democratizing technology, democratizing SaaS. You mentioned Africa. You reminded me of one of my favorite customers. All of them are favorite. This one is special. They're called MIFOS, Microfinance Open Source. It's a project that Dr. Mohamed Yunus, who won the Nobel Peace Prize in 2006, and came up. He was an economist, the first economist who won a peace Nobel Prize, and the reason was he came up with the idea of microfinancing and microcredit based on his experience of growing up in Bangladesh and seeing so many people without any access to banking or access to credit as one of the two major reasons for their extreme poverties, especially women, widows, that there was no social network, safety, security network for them. Just lend them $5, $10, and then over time, they come back and pay it 5 cents, 10 cents a month to replenish the fund, and then created the Grameen Bank in the world, in Washington, D.C., and so on. So some people in the industry, some big names, you mentioned some big names, contributed to create a software to support the concept of microfinancing, microcredit. And in 2007, the year after the Nobel Prize, and it wasn't until 2019 that this software became SaaS, thanks to SaaS Ops. And now this software is available across the world. It's a core banking software, allows anyone to quickly create a core banking, so automates the process of lending credit, and people can access it from a cell phone in sub-Saharan Africa and so on, as soon as they can get connected to a cell signal. And we hope that this technology, MIFOS, because of this SaaS enablement and because of the generosity of tech leaders, would help not eradicate, but at least minimize extreme poverty by giving people access. So sometimes when you were talking about innovation and courage and community, this is an example of an innovative technology with people who have courage and they believe in community to help in be part of a force for good. So thank you for reminding me of that. And yeah, people want to read about it. There was a press release, MIFOS, Microfinance Open Source, and how this technology quickly enabled them to become SaaS, because the software was there. But if it's not SaaS, it's not easily, it's like you have a great movie, but you don't have access to Netflix. You can distribute it. So
it's that distribution that matters so much, and monetization. Like in the case of this, it's a nonprofit, but it's still that kind of concept holds true, that that it needs to be sustainable. And like, where's that going to go next? Like, I even heard about there's new apps that are being developed where it takes the bank out altogether, and that's the beauty of this kind of democratizing technology, is that it allows countries in sub-Saharan Africa to actually leapfrog some more developed countries in some areas of technology. So I just think that's wonderful.
That's the power of technology that is democratized and provided access to, and we are all for that. One last point here, Claire. A lot of people say, okay, this is fantastic. You have this automated SaaS enablement in a matter of 48 hours, 72 hours, and automated operation of SaaS. But you know what? We have invested a lot in our own SaaS. So we do have a SaaS solution. I have a few comments about it, but what do you think about that? Is there room to take it from SaaS 1.0 to SaaS 2.0 by plugging in some of the capabilities, such as AI, such as micro billing, et cetera, or publication on AWS Marketplace, that still can help companies who are already SaaS, and they don't have to feel abandoned and penalized because they have invested in their own SaaS technology before the invention of SaaS ops.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is the beauty of AWS is that we're continually innovating with our customers in mind and working backwards. So we're always offering new features, new capabilities, and a lot of that is they're things that SaaS companies can take advantage of. And through our marketplace, which we're also doing a lot of innovation through our marketplace, that's one aspect of SaaSification, and the distribution of these apps is a marketplace like the AWS marketplace. So there's always going to be like a SaaS 2.0 or an evolution that they can take advantage of. And I think it comes down to the architecture as well. So, they might be able to do a kind of lift and shift and put it in a wrapper initially to just kind of get the commercials up and going and get the basics. But then, when they start looking at like how to actually re-architect it to take advantage of more of the capabilities that AWS has available, but without having to do all of that deep development, and instead just take advantage of the development you're doing with us and just plug them into the apps that they have.
Right. Yeah, that's I believe that's an important point to make to people, that just because you're SaaS, it doesn't mean you cannot take advantage of SaaS ops and the additional capabilities, including immediate publication on AWS Marketplace with all the additional capabilities, such as metering your application functions that immediately provides additional stream of revenue, and of course being in the marketplace, additional place for people to discover them. And then the AI capabilities, additional security capabilities, everything that, yeah, they are SaaS, but they can spend another 3-4 years of investment enhancing their own SaaS. And when they arrive at that point, they have to maintain it. So it's not just you're home free. So this has been amazing conversation. One last question. Do you have any guidance message for the AWS sales leaders to learn about this technology and share it with the right prospect customers, Claire?
Well, so yes, for our sales leaders, but also I want to back up for just 1 second and talk a little bit about some of what we could do to help the ISVs, the other
Yes,
ISVs,
of course.
everyone. I have not yet run into a customer, whether they're in the software and internet industry or whether they're in manufacturing, that doesn't want to SaaSify in some kind of way, right? It really is the direction everyone is going. And we do have a lot of resources to help these customers, starting with thinking about their business. So we're not just about helping them with the technology, but we want to help them think about their digital transformation and how to do it rapidly. And that starts with like leveraging our own work on innovation and how Amazon itself has become such an innovative company. We make these resources available to small businesses. And one of the things we've developed in the last couple of years is something called the Smart Business Hub, which is specifically directed toward more business leaders in the small that are in the smaller end of things. Like, you might not think of yourself as a small business. You might be a software and internet company that's just getting started. But I think all of these resources are still helpful to you. So we'll link to that so that you can take advantage of it, because within that, we also have a connected community, which is just such a great way to interact with peers and to get more access to exclusive training content, which our fabulous sister organization, AWS Training and Certification, also delivers, and to connect with our partner network. So our Amazon partner network is just so critical to what we do in our small and medium business organization worldwide. So I just wanted to give a little plug to some of the things we're doing at AWS for our customers, because we are always thinking first about these customers and then working backwards. And then for the leaders that I'm connected to at AWS, that software and internet industry is so important to us. It's really not only an engine of usage and innovation of AWS services, but it's also a channel to our small and medium business customers. There's so many of these companies who are interested in scaling what they do to small, medium businesses. A lot of times, in the past, a software company might have said, oh, I'm not too interested in small businesses as my customer because there's not enough profit in it. But when you talk about SaaS, then the marginal rate of increasing, your cost doesn't increase as much as your revenue because you're able to scale it out more and you can actually profitably serve these small and medium businesses. So it's really an engine for us at AWS, and SaaS Ops allows us to reach so many more customers than we would have otherwise because we're helping them use the power of SaaS to reach more of their customers.
Wonderful. Wonderful. I'm so glad that you mentioned this because we, Current Technology, we are the beneficiary of your wonderful programs at AWS. And we are so impressed by our colleagues in marketing, business development, the whole partner network. So you're excelling in partnership development. So thank you for all those great contributions. A message to the people in the sales organization. How do you think best we can deliver a message to the customers who may need this technology, need this information, Claire?
Well, I think it goes back to what I just mentioned around it's a way for them to reach more customers more quickly. So the more they can speed up that process of SaaSification, instead of reaching a couple customers, this is you offer a kind of ISV way to get ISVs to deliver more of what they deliver, right? So that's inherently scalable and will become more and more scalable as you develop. And I think that's the key thing for them to keep in mind is that we want to offer this kind of value to our end customers.
Wonderful. Claire, thank you for this engaging and informative conversation. Really appreciate you as a global thought leader to be my first guest on this podcast series. And thanks to our audience for listening. We are always here. My chat box is coming out. So anytime people want to talk to me, you can reach out to my chat bot. I hear it's a more intelligent version of me. So, because it has access to 30 plus years of my conversations specifically around this topic, also around entrepreneurship and SaaS. I mean, everything SaaS. Hope in the next few weeks it would be available and you will have access to it. But I'm personally also available, currenttech.com, and looking forward to continuing the conversation. Thank you again, Claire.
Thanks, Spacey. Great to see you as always.
This has been Democratizing SaaS. A multi-trillion-dollar software renaissance has begun. A new generation of innovators is being empowered. The revolution will be democratized. What world-shifting ideas will you build? Find out more at currenttech.com. Democratizing SaaS is a production of Forbes Books.